I'm as busy as a spider spinning daydreams. I'm as giddy as a baby on a swing. I haven't seen a crocus or a rosebud or a robin on the wing.
Everybody, this is Dr. Ed Park from Recharge Biomedical, and today we're doing a webinar on arthritis. Okay, so what are joints? The first slide shows that there are many things. Joints, by definition, are just the unions of bones. Sometimes it's good to state the obvious. First, there are three types: fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. A fibrous joint is where a bone comes together with the bone with fiber, such as the sutures of a skull. The syndesmosis, which is where, let's say here, the fibula joins the tibia. It doesn't really move, but it is joined. And similar on your forearm, there's two bones, the radius and the ulna. There'd be that joint as well. Secondly, there's the cartilaginous, which are just cartilage, like between the spinal vertebral bodies, these intervertebral discs, and also between your pubic symphysis in the right in the middle of your pubic area, which separates when you're pregnant sometimes, if you've been pregnant. The third type of joint is the synovial joint, which is a movable joint, classically like a knee. It has a fibrous capsule around it, which creates this fluid-filled synovial cavity, like a shock absorber, and then there's articular cartilage at the ends. The ends of this bone, there's this shiny, like a Teflon end, which is the articular cartilage. So what is arthritis? Arthritis has many, many causes, over 100, and just by way of definition, arthralgia is pain that someone feels. Okay. Arthritis is a feature, meaning a disease can have a feature, one being arthritis. And itis just means inflammation, so it's inflammation of a joint or joints. Nodules of the fingers, as you'll see commonly in all old people, deviations usually laterally of the fingers, deformities. We've seen ankle deformities like in the psoriasis webinar, effusions, which are often red, hot swelling, like water on the knee, tenderness, which is a sign when you push it hurts. So, and range of motion problems, these are signs, and signs are generally things that are observed by the clinician or others. So, symptom, what you report, ow, my joint hurts. Arthritis is a feature of a disease, and the sign is a lot of these other things. The most common primary type of arthritis is osteoarthritis, which just means bone arthritis, and that's a byproduct of age and overusage. Just like tires that roll on the road will wear out, similarly, joints that are overused, these will wear out. But one thing that has been known is just obvious on the face of it is that getting old causes arthritis. But how? And I would suggest that it's probably just from copying those cells over and over again. And yes, in the presence of oxidative inflammatory stress as well. Another common form is rheumatoid arthritis, which really appears to be more of a dysfunction in the T cell system and the aging of the T cells, and we'll get into some literature later with that. Secondary forms of arthritis would be psoriatic arthritis, Lyme arthritis, which, as we saw with webinar 28, can happen even in very young people, as does psoriatic, has an onset in the teens or early 20s. And then there's connective tissue disorders and related inflammatory bowel disease, such as Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, which we'll hear a case of later. These connective tissue disorders, classically we know them as lupus, and then the cousins, Sjogren's syndrome, scleroderma. These things are weird antibodies come up, and there's dysregulation of the immune system, so it starts to attack the host. Okay, now I have to put a disclaimer in here that I'm not a immunologist, nor do I have a PhD. All I have is, the internet, like the rest of you. So, I mean, I did train in medicine, but I speak with absolutely no authority. But this little guy here, who is the only one that doesn't see the awesome clothes, he didn't have much authority either. So throughout these 30 webinars that I've done, it's become increasingly obvious to me that there may just be one disease, and that everyone is intent on seeing the wonderful adornment of the different types of disease. But to me, I'm becoming much more simple in my thinking, and that I may be this guy walking out naked. Who knows? I'm giving a couple of talks in Hollywood, Florida, at a big annual conference of aging specialists, and then also in Sun Valley, Idaho. And I may get laughed off the stage for just being a OBGYN or whatever, but time will tell. But I guess the joke is I'm not a rheumatologist, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so we'll sally forth. One thing that people always have in their minds is that a family history is so crucial. People say, well, I never had a family history of lupus. Or they say, oh, I did have come to think of it, my 9-year-old grandma did have arthritis. You wouldn't really walk into the you wouldn't walk into your dealership and say, gosh, nobody in my family's ever had to change tires, even though they drove their car to 200,000. I mean, you expect it. This is just the wear and tear of the system. Likewise, you don't say, oh, come to think of it, Aunt Edie blew a gasket back in '87. You just expect the car parts to wear down. And in some ways, the car analogy is a good analogy. And this is where I have a main problem with measuring leukocyte telomeres, or blood cells. Everything is aging differently. If you're a drinker, maybe your esophagus and liver are aging faster. If you're a Korean person, you eat a lot of kimchi, maybe your stomach is aging faster. Everything ages at a different rate. And so the idea of taking blood to know what's going on with the other organs is suspect, and we'll quote a study of that later. But keep in mind that just because it's easy to check this tire pressure doesn't mean it's going to correlate perfectly or at all with your car cylinder pressure or your brakes. And a nice little point on the horizon to think about is this gentleman who bought this spiffy little car and kept it going in perfect condition to 2.6 million miles. He's going for $3 million, and because of the factory refurb parts and preventative maintenance, he's going strong. Let's recap for those that haven't heard this spiel. 4 essential slides, and then you'll be more in the know than most doctors. So here it goes. My universal theory of cancer, disease, and aging is that at the end of these chromosomes, 92 in a diploid cell, we have this end, and it physically cannot get to the end to copy. That's just a fact. So every time a cell divides, it'll shorten by 50 base pairs. If you get to the end, then bad things happen. So here, on every end of a chromosome is a tip, like an aglet on a shoelace, just this 6 base pair repeating thing. And as we get older, as the cell divides, every 2 daughters from the one mother is shorter. Simple. When the end's shorten enough, then the DNA damage response kicks in, and this is the obviously you don't want chromosomes broken, so you got to fix them and anneal them. So what will happen is the end of a naked chromosome or critically short one will be joined to another end, and hunky-dory. I mean, it's a dumb system. It's incredibly elegant, but it still will make a double chromosome. So what happens when you line up the tips and the centers? Actually, the centers is what you tether onto. These are microtubules at the time of cell division, and you tear apart the sisters. Well, if you have a double chromosome, where's it going to tear? It's kind of like these trapeze artists. Let's say you crazy glue the hands together. Where's it going to tear? Not necessarily the hands. It could be the shoulders. And that's what we're seeing here on this, I believe it's a lung cancer. It tore somewhere else. So this part, the turquoise, tore, and it got reconnected the next time around to this brown thing. This part tore off the yellow, and it got connected to chromosome 4. So this mishmash, once this begins, you're in trouble. And you can end up with 3 copies of a chromosome or 0 copies of 20 in this case, and all kinds of cuts and breaks. So there's nothing good about shortening. What's the solution? Well, telomerase is the enzyme in every cell, but turned off in most non-stem cells. It's just a little machine that pumps out this message over and over again, like a old stock ticker tape. And it's interesting to note that it doesn't fill equally the glasses if we use this analogy. It'll only fill the less full shot glasses till they're even. And there is a limit. You can't overfill because there is a trimming mechanism as well, even though that is sometimes aberrant in cancer cells. So what are stem cells? Stem cells are like queen bees. They are she's making a copy of herself. All these little drones are clones. Clones are drones. So they start off with a genetic endowment that's like the mom. So the queen is a certain age, shall we say, by telomere erosion, and she's got a certain number of errors in her genetic code. So likewise, if we took a master copy, I don't care how good it is, and we photocopy it, and then we start photocopying from the photocopies, very quickly you'll accumulate streaks, blurs, deletions, rotation, and that's a pretty good analogy for figuring out why cells are not immortal, as people once thought. So the general equation is when we start out as one fertilized egg, and then you go all the way down to the lowly skin cell, this thing has no telomerase activity and can only be one thing, a lowly skin cell. But it's a continuum, and so as we go down in differentiation, we lose the telomerase activity or the ability to be immortal. Again, this is so there are stem-like cells, and I refer you to podcast 5 for more about stem cells. But everything has a certain amount of telomerase activity, which is roughly correlated with its potentiality. As you lose the ability to become all things, you lose the telomerase activity. In Star Wars, there was this fella, Jabba the Hutt, and if you do a thought experiment, which I guess people didn't do before Leonard Hayflick, it's pretty clear to understand that all cells can't be immortal, as they thought. So Leonard put the cells in a dish, and he found that after about 50 doublings or divisions, the cells were non-viable because they had no telomerase. If every cell was immortal in your body, you would grow exponentially and you'd starve to death within hours, right? So there has to be something in the system that keeps us from becoming giant blobs, and that is P53. So let's just explore this concept a little bit more of a replicative senescence. So here's Leonard's experiment. And so you take a nice little cell, put it in a dish, and let it divide over and over and over again, and gradually, boom, it drops off the cliff. And as it drops off the cliff, the percentage of aneuploid or messed up chromosomes that we saw earlier in the lung cancer goes up. Makes sense, right? The chromosomes are shortening, and then they're becoming double chromosomes are ripped apart, and then non-viability ensues with the chromosomal damage. So what happens in every cell, stem cells not being accepted, is that when the cell recognizes that the chromosome number is incorrect, it will kill itself, like ritual seppuku or harakiri. And that is a fundamental mission of the cell, is to kill itself. And so this diagram shows that as the telomeres are uncapped, again, we discussed the DNA damage pathway, which is apoptosis, and there's also senescence pathway, which is phoning it in. They don't die as they should, but they stay in on their job, and they don't really reproduce well, and they create problems and inflammatory. As you get DNA damage, and the P53 or the watchman of the genes decides to kill that cell, it'll poke holes in the mitochondria, and the mitochondria are like these battery acid packs. So they'll release a bunch of apoptotic factors, or just battery acid, and the cell will dissolve itself from inside, much like that Mission Impossible tape at the beginning of that really cool series. So let's look at this study that was done in 2006, and they looked at hand osteoarthritis, and this would be 1,000 and 86 Caucasian subjects, and they do this thing called regression analysis, or they take out age, sex, body mass, smoking, and then when you control for all those contributions, the leukocyte telomere length was shorter when you had hand osteoarthritis than with not. Now that they correctly suggest that there's potential shared mechanisms between osteoarthritis and aging. That's all we can say in terms of causality and science. True, unrelated, or true, related, same thing. So if I tell you my tires are bald and my brakes are worn, those are true. They are related in a way because there's driving and friction, but they're not necessarily causally related. So the second part of this, oxidative stress and low-level chronic inflammation, being causal, I'm not sure they're saying that, but that's a question we need to question that is unresolved, because the traditional thinking about arthritis is that there is inflammation and oxidation, and that is the problem. And so people take antioxidants, whereas, again, in my dogma, it's more the cell trying to clear itself. So it's the body creating inflammation and the firefighters coming in and clearing the debris. So in this analogy, the firefighters are the T cells, or the immune system, macrophages, and the mesenchymal stem cells are the new shoots, the new growths coming in. So the system is made to destroy damaged cells, to clear them, and so the inflammation can also be viewed as any forestry marshal or person will tell you. The forest fire is a necessary part of the health and maintenance of a forest. Okay, so let's see what's wrong with my dogma then. And this is 2004. These folks did an interesting experiment. They took telomerase and they activated it in some cells. They introduced the gene where previously it wasn't present. And they did this with cartilage cells, which are the cells of main interest in arthritis, in normal physiologic O2 environment, 20%. And then in 5% oxygen, and they noted that in only one of three, but still very interesting experiment nonetheless, that line got to 90 population doublings, almost double the usual 40. So what they concluded was that the inflammation from repair unleashes oxidation. Okay, by that, that's the cell, the p53, the mitochondrial leakage, the T cells, the macrophages. But they said that the low oxygen in combination with the new telomerase did help survival. So as with things, the truth, somewhat in between, perhaps. So what about immune dysregulation? Well, here's an interesting study from 2009 in rheumatoid arthritis. And so keep in mind the history of this. I think it was 87 that, well, I think in the 70s, a Russian guy, Alovnikov, knew that Watson and Crick had identified the end replication problem, so that cells can't get to the end, so they have to shorten. So he theorized there was an enzyme to artificially lengthen the ends. And a reverse transcriptase was not even really thought about until HIV, so it just means it takes an RNA and template and makes DNA out of it. But the facts followed, and then they got a Nobel Prize in 2009, the same year, for the discovery of that enzyme telomerase. And Geron discovered a telomerase activator, and in 2007, TA Sciences brought it to market, and people have been taking that. And again, one of the gentlemen we'll hear from later has been taking it since 2007. So 2 years into that, these guys did a study on telomerase insufficiency, and they discovered that, and this is 1 in 10,000, this is 5 in 100,000 chance that it's just random. So they found that when you knock out telomerase activity, this increases apoptosis, which you understand why, and limits the ability of stem cell, that's a clonal burst, or a queen bee, to replenish the damaged cartilage. And they suggest a direct involvement of telomerase in the deterioration of the T cells. Both they're saying in the T cells, because rheumatoid arthritis is, keep in mind, mainly an immune disease, not a cartilage disease. So they found that overexpression, on the other hand, of telomerase conveys apoptotic resistance, meaning it helps keep them alive and restores their clonal expansion. So one can only conclude that telomerase insufficiency is bad and accelerates the disease. And so this is only one study, but nevertheless consistent with what we're thinking. Let's go ahead and listen to the first anecdote. It's a 72-year-old woman who has been taking telomerase activator for just one day. And that's kind of, I don't mean to be glib at the end of this, but you'll see. She feels better, but you know, there are a lot of people who do report immediate improvement, literally overnight improvement, and we just have to see. But judge for yourself. Okay.
Those kind of things, and when I would get up off the couch to go to the bathroom or whatever, I didn't feel any stiffness in my joints, in my knees and my ankles and feet, which I always do. Have a lot of stiffness and discomfort normally when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or whatever. Last night, during those hours between 11 and 4, I did not, I was amazed that I didn't have that feeling in my knees and ankles that I always have. I said, I don't think this is happening. I think I'm imagining this.
Probably you are, yeah.
It could be. Could be a placebo effect or something.
See. Well, let's just wait and see. Okay. So, I don't know why I said that, but because a lot of people actually do report overnight improvement in their joints, even well into it if they get the dosage high enough. That's been my experience. It's strictly a dosage-dependent phenomenon. So let's move forth here to the next case, which is a 60-something medical doctor, a specialist in ADHD treatment, who works in Santa Monica and Irvine, and he'd been on for a few weeks and was very health conscious. And I think you'll listen here. Isn't that amazing? I know, that's great.
And you know what's really just shocked me is that I'm very healthy. I've been doing Tai Chi for 35 years. I take every vitamin known to mankind, antioxidant, and it's had a profound. It's like nothing I've ever taken before, Ed.
Yeah.
This is not like an antioxidant. This is not like vitamin. It's not like hormone. This is not like anti-aging hormone. This is really very different.
Yeah.
And I feel like I felt like when I was back in my 50s.
It gets better.
I have severe degenerative arthritis in my right hip and knee that need replacement. And since I've been on T65, it's amazing how not only is my pain so much less, but I live in Santa Monica, and when I drive to Irvine, typically when I get out of my car, I'm not able to walk for about 5 seconds. My legs are so stiff. Now, when I get out of my car in Irvine after driving from Santa Monica, I get out of my car and I just start walking.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And it's not normal walking for the first few seconds, but it's night and day to what it was 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, great. So that was interesting. Thirdly, it's a 70-year-old woman whose husband, and this is classic, engineer, entrepreneur. These are the two skill sets we have for especially the early adopters or the innovators. In my first few years of doing this, 08, 09, they're pretty much all engineers and CEO types or dreamers, entrepreneurs. And so he got his wife to take it as he was taking it. Tom did. And so Beverly has had a long history of inflammatory bowel disease, and that's probably related to her mixed connective tissue disorder, as arthritis or arthritides are a prominent feature of inflammatory bowel disease. And so the way that they've learned to follow their disease is through the C-reactive protein, or CRP, which is a pretty nonspecific but reliable indicator of inflammation, whatever that means, in the system. And so over the years, they'd taken Plaquenil and prednisone, although prednisone was no longer in play, and Plaquenil is an immune suppressor. And they had kept their C-reactive protein in the 15 range, I think, and her symptoms were okay also with regard to the inflammatory bowel disease. But, of course, the pain and the arthritis, especially in her back, was ongoing. So let's hear what she has to say about her improved C-reactive protein.
But for the last 9 years, been trying to figure out how to get her CRP level down.
Why was it up?
Yeah, I have the connective tissue disorder.
And what manifestations do you have?
At the time, I had the joint was mostly in the joints, stiffness, lack of strength in them, extreme fatigue, crippling. But I'm past that. I've been in remission for about 4 years. And but my Plaquenil. Started out with Plaquenil and I'm sure I can't think.
Prednisone.
Prednisone, yes.
So now, you had a CRP of 14 at one point. What's it been recently?
Actually, it was over 15 at one point, yes.
And so did the Plaquenil or the prednisone help with that?
Apparently it didn't do much because it remained high has remained high and gone down very gradually. Last time I was at 6 something, 6.5 or something.
0 to 3 is supposed to be normal.
And but I thought it was headed. I was real pleased with headed in the right direction, and that would have been probably right after I had started taking the TAs. And now, when I got my last one, and it was 0.56, I could hardly believe. I still can't hardly believe it.
We may get drunk in celebration. I mean, I've got a record of it for the last 3 years, and I mean, it never got down to 6.
Yeah.
Which is what it's supposed to be until the last. She had been on the TA 65s for a month or so.
So, it's pretty exciting. Pretty significant. Pretty significant drop for them. And we did get that from Jeff Welch, the young man, during Lyme. He describes a decrease in the inflammation. He says it's hard to explain, but certainly if we had taken a CRP, perhaps it would have been reflected in that. The last, which is not reflected on this slide, is a 88-year-old gentleman who's been taking TA65 since 2007. And he, I remember, called very angrily a few months into it to TA Sciences and asked them, what do you people know about arthritis? What research is there on TA65? And he said, well, I don't know, sir. And the basic thing was his arthritis had gone away in his hands. And rather than being happy, he was quite upset at him for not knowing what was going on. And that's just how he approached it. And with a little bit of Alzheimer's, he doesn't even recall how bad his hands were. Apparently they were all bad. But let's hear what he recalls. And that's part of the upward spiral. People just they get used to feeling good, and they don't really understand what the TA is doing. They just know they're not getting older. They're feeling better. And let's hear what he has to say, again, bringing out the point that recall is quite subjective. I'm talking with Mr. Jared and about his arthritis. So what year did you start taking the TA65, and how have you been taking it, sir?
I've taken 4 pills a day For 5 years. This is my 5th year.
Mm-hmm. And Naomi, your lovely bride, she taking it too?
Taking exactly the same thing. 2 to 3 days in the pool, 2 to 3 days in the exercise room.
Oh, good for you. And tell me how your joints are. Did you used to have arthritis? Yeah.
My arthritis is much better.
Where was your arthritis?
Arthritis is in my hips and my legs and in my right hand.
Hips, legs, and hand. What about your back and neck?
If I had it in my neck, I don't know it.
How about your back and your arms?
No.
Back and arms are okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so really your hips and your knees and your
My knees are terrible. My knees, I take Synovus shots for every 6 months.
What do you take?
Synovus.
Synovisc. Okay, every 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, have you thought of getting hip or knee replacements, sir?
Not at the age of 88, no.
Before TA65, were there other fingers that hurt?
Pardon me?
Before TA, did you have any other fingers that hurt you?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Because, Wei Min said you called and were like, what studies do you folks know about arthritis? Because my arthritis is going away. Did that happen? Do you remember?
Yes.
And you
I
think
didn't even know.
Did the TA65 help you, sir?
Yes, I think the TA65 has helped me greatly.
Okay. Did you ever take bone strengthening drugs?
No.
No. Do you take chondroitin sulfate? No. I guess this expression is success has many mothers, but failure is an orphan. So there's always people saying, well, and the people paying for it, you have a mixed incentive to say it's working and then it's not working because it's expensive. So at any rate, we'll hear from Jerry and more in the future, but he continues to take it. As we did the Lyme webinar, one gentleman said it wasn't working for him, and yet, 6 months later, he was back on it at a full dose. So sometimes the money talks. Lastly, in celebration of baseball's opening day tomorrow, we will talk to one of the boys of summer who is, I think, 73. Do you have arthritis things that have gotten any better while you've been on it, or is it all pretty?
I think the biggest thing I noticed this year, and I got to attribute it to the TA65, is for years I couldn't get my arm back pitching. I couldn't get back. I was pitching basically from the ear, from around my ear, and that was, and all of a sudden this year I was able to get fully back and extend my arm, so that I think that's what improved my velocity.
Sure. Yeah, no, my son had the same thing yesterday. He was pitching from his ear like a quarterback, and by the end of his 15-minute lesson, he had gained like 15 miles an hour from reaching way back. So
if you can reach back, it makes a huge difference. And this year, all of a sudden, I went out and I didn't expect it, and like the second or third time I was out pitching, all of a sudden, I found myself reaching back instead of coming right to my ear, and that made a huge difference. And I don't know what else could have done it, but who knows?
Do you take any other supplements or hormones or growth?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing really different. I mean, I'm taking my Lipitor and cholesterol. I know. By the way, apropos of this, I had to cut my blood pressure medication even further. I had another episode of low blood pressure.
Oh, yeah.
So now, from 8 milligrams of Atacane and 25 milligrams of hydrochlorothiazide, I'm off the hydrochlorothiazide and I'm down to 4 milligrams of Atacane.
Good for you. That's going in the right direction.
So that's really unusual.
I just want to answer the question, the elephant in the room, which is how could this be happening? I'm not saying that it's causal, but in theory, what could be happening is that organs, especially in the cartilage, they have these frozen cells like bugs in amber. So what we find is that the mesenchymal stem cells are these queen bees for hire. They go everywhere and they can differentiate. If you need a liver cell or a heart cell, they'll go there and become a liver or heart. So like management consultants or something like that, they come in and they take on a position. And we found that the replacement mesenchymal stem cells, they tend to come, when you look at the clonal analysis or you look at the DNA and see who's older and what the origins are, they seem to come from these bugs in amber or the cartilage. So it's an ingenious system of kind of freezing away for a rainy day. So if and when, which I believe the TA might be helping with, if and when the cells are able to undergo apoptosis and die, then you got hopefully a younger replacement that's defrosted and coming in. The problem is that these job positions, queen bees, are a finite resource. So if there's somebody in that position who's not doing their job, they got to be killed or kill themselves before they can be replaced. That might be going on. So after apoptosis, look at these beautifully preserved stem-like cells, chondroblasts, or they're in the cartilage, they're in the freezer, so to speak. They'll come out and they'll become a queen bee, and if needed in the cartilage, they'll become cartilage and make more cartilage. And we talk about mesenchymal stem cells in podcasts 7 and 8, bones and another one, and that's a very important concept to have, that these mesenchymal stem cells travel around, or maybe they're locally derived from the connective tissue, and they become fat, muscle, cartilage, even pancreatic insulin-producing cells. So this is how the system renews itself, and it depends on apoptosis. And of course, one of the features of a stem cell, mesenchymal stem cell otherwise, is that it has high telomerase activity. So a little more literature. In 2010, they looked at telomeres and the immunological diseases of aging. And this is more of a review article, but they conclude that telomeric erosion, maintenance, and repair take center stage in determining the cell's fate. Cells of the immune system are under enormous proliferative demand, stressing the telomeric intactness. That's a great word. Lymphocytes are capable of upregulating telomerase, an enzyme that can elongate telomeric sequences and thus prolong cellular lifespan. The role of telomere loss in immune aging and the impact of telomere dysfunction in chronic inflammatory disease. That's really what they're talking about. So instead of the emperor's new clothes, maybe we're looking at more like a peeping Tom situation. Maybe the truth is hiding. Walking around, I mean, there's 15,000 articles and growing on telomere, and maybe it's just that we refuse to see the truth. So I'm sure the truth will win out eventually. There was a famous scholar from the Scholasticist movement in the medieval times who said, don't come up with a lot of different reasons when one will do. So this paper from 2010 says that oxidative stress, inflammation, and increased cell renewal are supplementary environmental factors, but they all work through accelerating telomere shortening. So this overarching theory is basically the same as mine, and it's saying that all these inflammatory diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, granulomatous diseases mediate through telomerase activity and telomerase length, and that they appear to be prematurely aging the immune system. And one of the proofs that we have from taking TA65 is that the immune system does appear to regenerate. And so this is all in keeping with this overall theory of arthritis being a disease of aging. It's Dr. Park here. Because of a problem with the software, the remainder of the webinar, including question and answers, was not recorded, so we'll just end it there. So in conclusion, we've presented understanding of what arthritis is, reviewed the literature surrounding telomere erosion and arthritis in the context of our stem cell theory of aging and disease, and talked to a few people who've experienced some remarkable improvements while taking TA65. Be sure and look up other podcasts referenced in this podcast and sign up for our mailing list to be able to participate live. Thanks a lot, everybody, and this is Ed Park from Recharge Biomedical signing off.
But I feel so gay in a melancholy way that it might as well be spring.